It's match day. West Ham are travelling to Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park today. I'm looking forward to this one, actually. The defeat to Aston Villa hasn't really dampened my spirits too much. I had a certain level of pragmatism after that game. I think it sort of drove it home to me that there was still quite a lot of work to do for Lopetegui to imprint his style, I think, to sort of, as I mentioned before, get rid of some of the old habits. But I don't think we're going to see some massive metamorphosis from the way David Moyes used to do things. I think we'll have more possession. I think we'll probably control games a bit more than we used to. But I don't expect to see sort of Frank Rijkaard's Barcelona from West Ham. I don't expect to see that at all. I think we will play a lot of long balls. I think we'll see more. As soon as Todibo starts, which he may well do today, I think we're going to see more, even more long balls. In fact, I would probably argue that we would probably see more long balls than we did under David Moyes, who I didn't feel was overly a long ball manager. A defensive manager, yes, but not overly a long ball. So we are going to see a culture shift, but maybe not in the way that some of us expected. And to be honest with you, I didn't know massively what to expect when Lopetegui came in. I'd be lying to you if I turned around and I said I paid a lot of attention to Wolverhampton Wanderers when he was manager there, and obviously we played his Sevilla team, but I don't remember watching that, and I'm thinking that they were particularly long ball or anything like that. It was something that Troy Deeney said, actually. Troy Deeney was on Talk Sport, and he was talking about the Fullkrug, and then just as also almost like a side part of the interview, possibly it was Jim White, asked him, well, what do you think of Lopetegui then? And he said, I don't think it's going to be much different. He said, we played them. I guess he means Watford, wherever he was playing for at the time. He said, we played them. We played Wolves, or I went and watched them play or something. And he said, I don't think they'll be that different to David Moyes. I do think we're going to control games more, though. That I do think is going to happen. I mentioned it in another video, I felt from about 35 minutes up until about 65 minutes in a game against Villa, we actually controlled the game. And I think even when David Moyes, even when it's swashbuckling best at David Moyes and the counter-attack was really working, sometimes we'd get really big wins. We've got really big wins over Wolves, funny enough. Got really big wins over Leicester as well, if you remember. And I think even when those were happening, you struggle to say we controlled the game, where we hit teams on the counter-attack. I definitely thought there were points during that Aston Villa game where we controlled it. And I think if we can get some level of control in games, then we'll always be in games. We'll get to Edson Alvarez in a second, actually. I want to see more from Mohamed Kudus, and I don't mean to lay any blame at Mohamed Kudus's door, far from it. I don't want to see him in the left wing. I think he can play well there. I do. And I think already you saw in Aston Villa, I think Kudus provided more left foot crosses from the left wing than we were used to seeing last season. So I do think he can do that, and I think he can do it well. I think he can travel with the ball well. I think he can go inside. I think he can, stay on his left, go down the outside, stay on his left foot and cross it over. But is that really why you have Mohamed Kudus in your team, to be an expert crosser of the ball? Well, I'm not so sure. So I'd like to see a tactic where we can get him more into the middle, and I think that's quite important. I'd quite like to see that. But we're going to see more of the new players today. There's no doubt about that. I would imagine. It's hard to know. We've got one example, haven't we? We've got one game really to look at if you discount the pre-season friendlies. But I would imagine Wan-Bissaka comes in. Why would you not? Why would you chase a player that hard for that long, almost discounting any alternatives, pay more than you were willing to pay to only leave him on the bench? I think you'd play him. The Todibo one, I think, is slightly different because I do think Mavropanos played a decent game. I would imagine Todibo starts. Long term, that's going to be the back line, isn't it, as we all know? So I think that could be interesting. The composition of the midfield, it's intriguing. It is intriguing because, as I mentioned in a few videos, I don't feel that Thomas Souček really played as a midfielder. A lot of people, mention about keeping Thomas Souček in the team, not just because what he can bring going forward, but those performances that he had when Declan Rice was allowed to rampage forward, and he was almost like an auxiliary centre back, wasn't he? and he was doing lots of clearances, lots of blocks. We'd often do our player ratings, our patron player ratings, and you'd look at it and he'd have done 4 clearances, 3 headed clearances, 4 blocks. His statistics, and we did used to look at them on our stat attack during that video, and his statistics were defensive ones. I don't think that's what we saw from him. I don't think that was the type of performance he was given. I think he was actually doing the other thing. So I think we did lose out on a midfielder. So it'd be interesting to see what Lopetegui does. I mean, he either liked what he saw or he didn't. If he didn't like what he saw, it was because the midfield was void at times. I thought Rodriguez was handling that midfield, those responsibilities on his own. If Lopetegui liked what he saw, it would have been because, as I mentioned in a few videos, and there's been some resistance towards it, but I did feel that he was the player that caused Aston Villa's defence most difficulty. I really do. I felt that was Souček. So if that's what Lopetegui was looking for, you might find he is included again. Which sort of brings us nicely on to Edson Alvarez. I mentioned him in a video yesterday, and I said, actually, I don't want to talk about it now. I need to find out a little bit more. During that time, I was finding out a little bit more, of course. It was revealed by ex-West Ham United employee that he was in the squad, today's matchday squad, which sort of backed up what Fabrizio Romano had said 2 days before. And listen, when Fabrizio Romano said it, I didn't believe it, truth be known. I thought, no way. How can he be? Yeah, everything you hear from the training ground, he hasn't been training. He's been on the grass, but he's not been training with the first team. So he's in the squad, apparently. Incredible. Can't imagine he'd start. I mean, no, I mean, he won't. He just won't start, will he? Will he feature off the bench? Who knows? I mean, it throws into, because it wasn't the only thing that Fabrizio Romano said, was it? Fabrizio Romano said he will be back in the squad for Palace. So, look, well done, brilliant, for having that sort of insight and having those contacts at the club. But the other thing he said was, don't rule out him leaving. Other clubs will be coming and looking to bid for him later on in the window. I think we can expect a little bit of a little bit of a raid, basically, a little bit of a hustle, and I'd be keen to avoid that, because I do think Alvarez is really important for us. I don't think he'd feature from the start. Which brings us on to the striker. I think we all know that you're going to have Jarrod Bowen, that you're going to have Lucas Paquetá, and you're going to have Mohamed Kudus. What combination of them, we don't know. Maybe Paquetá starts on the left-hand side. We don't know. What is not so clear is what's going to happen up front. I'd like to see Fullkrug get the start. I would. For 2 reasons. Number one, I think Antonio was poor, and therefore Fullkrug deserves the start. Don't mind seeing Antonio off the bench, though. I think Antonio with a point to prove coming off the bench is a pain in the bum, really, and particularly for a defence that's... They've lost Joachim Andersen. He's signed for Fulham now. Oliver Glasner said that Gahey's going to play in this game. That's what he said. He said... He did. He absolutely said it in his press conference. So you have to assume that he's telling the truth. I'm going to assume someone's lying. But they're still missing a component part of their defence, but it does make things a lot better for Crystal Palace. I think if you look at Crystal Palace last season, you're going to say, actually, we're going to take out Elise, we're going to take out Anderson, and we're going to take out Gahey. That's tough. I think, okay, yes, look, they've lost 2 of them, but keeping Gahey, it's still, got Gahey, Wharton, Eze in there. They've still got some danger men, haven't they? Some really good players. So, look, it's going to be interesting, no doubt about it. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. But, and I am going to be calm. I know it might be more difficult. You'd have to remind me in the video afterwards. If we do lose, then I will only be doing a review to review the game as a whole. I sort of prepared myself quite early on that West Ham might, after 3 games, be pointless. And so it's not that it's okay, but I sort of prepared for it. What I don't want to do is overreact to that. It's look, you either believe it takes time to build a team or you don't. I think it does. I think there are some managers who can turn it on really quickly. They're very, very good man managers, but I think particularly if you've had someone that's been in place for as long as Moyes had, and then you're bringing in loads of other players, I think it just becomes increasingly more difficult, particularly bearing in mind how porous the defence was last season. defensively, there's a lot to fix. In attack, I don't think there is. I think we've got some magical players. We really do. Even without any of the other attackers coming in. You know, I think Bowen, Kudus, Keta, Antonio is a pain, is a difficult proposition for any Premier League defence. I think they're bloody good players, and on their day they can all win games. I think our defence was nothing like that. So there's major surgery that needed doing on the defence, and I think that's going to take a little bit of time. But I am hopeful, actually. I am hopeful. It's not going to be easy. But fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we can get some. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'm going to compose. Me and Gio are doing a build-up show today, so we'll see you an hour and 5 minutes before kickoff. But what I am going to do, because he won't let me have a cheeky bet in the main bet with a phrase that pays. I'm going to compile a cheeky bet now. I'm going to try and predict all the Premier League results, sort of like a Super Six, but. In fact, I'll do my own Super Six. I'll put 10 pence down, and one day I'm going to win an awful lot of money. So I'm going to go and do that now and make some unrealistic predictions. I will catch you lot as myself and Gio are reading out the team sheet. Just about an hour over before kickoff.